Now, this is a very in-depth topic, something that we have covered in the past numerous times, but it's just getting bigger and it's actually coming to a head. And there have been some revelations lately, and this is why we wanted to release the video today, is because we just wanted to get on it and so we could talk to you all about it. So let's start out from the beginning.
I'll do a rundown.
Okay.
So there's a nonprofit organization, think tank called Safeguard Defenders, right? And there's some Taiwanese people involved. There's people from around the world involved.
Sure.
And what they uncovered, they do a lot of good work, by the way. If you go to their website, it's not like boring reports. They do really visual stuff about stuff like, especially related to China's international aggression and stuff, right? So Safeguard Defenders put out this report, and they found that there was, dozens of these overseas police stations where China was taking their government, employees or whatever, and then sending them abroad to open up these, police stations in different countries. Let's say Canada, sure. Right? And they were actually claiming that the people involved were just volunteers. They're just, we're just getting enthusiastic Chinese citizens that want to help their fellow Chinese people abroad, right? Mm-hmm. So most people weren't paying too much attention. And that's why Safeguard Defenders went kind of in depth with this stuff.
Yeah.
What they found was that they were opening up these overseas police stations, and there's different branches of CCP officials doing this from different parts of China that were starting these police stations. Yeah. Some of them were done above board, like, for example, in Italy.
Yes.
They got the Italian government just to agree to say, yes, we'll have a police cooperation with China, right?
Sure.
Sign them on. And the whole world's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you actually doing?
Yeah.
That was in 2016. Mm-hmm. In other places where they definitely weren't going to get approval, like Canada or the US or Germany, right? In countries that they knew they wouldn't get approval, they set up these stations, and they set them up with this idea that we'll operate them out of these weird kind of hidden facilities. We'll go to like a restaurant. We'll go to an acupuncture facility. We'll go to
basically
a massage
Chinese
parlor.
businesses, because there's already a presence there.
Yep.
They worm their way into the Chinese communities.
Yep.
They find the Chinese diaspora community leaders, community businesses, and then they make sure that everybody knows that they're present, and then they operate out of one of those people's restaurants or real estate agency or whatever.
So like I was saying, it's like an alibi. Think about it. You're already in a Chinese community.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to set up there. And then your next alibi, the most important one, is we're enthusiastic citizens of China that want to help people when they have difficulties in their country abroad, right? So let's say New York City. Yeah. Let's say you go to a Chinese neighborhood in Flushing.
Yeah.
You're in Flushing, New York City. You're like, okay, if somebody needs to renew their driver's license, right, then we'll help facilitate that.
Now, hang on a second, because I want to just talk about this driver's license thing. Every single time there's been some kind of an official inquiry about these police stations, and I've been reading so many reports on this, but every single time, let's say the UK government approaches the embassy in the UK and says, what's the deal with these so-called clandestine police stations? Yeah. And when the US government approaches the US embassy or the Australian, any one of these places, the first thing that they say is that these were set up to help Chinese citizens abroad renew their driver's licenses. They say that every time, the driver's licenses. How many freaking Chinese people abroad need to renew their Chinese driver's licenses? Don't they have a local one?
You know what happened here?
What?
Well, number one, the consulates are supposed to take care
that's
of
also what I was going to say. If you want to renew your driver's license or any paperwork, and if you have any trouble, if you have legal trouble, anything, you go to your embassy, your consulate. You go there. That's what they're for. Yeah. But they always use this as an excuse. Driver's license, driver's license, driver's license, driver's license. Yeah. Driver's bullshit is what it is. Yeah. And that is the official, from every statement that's come from every embassy around the world, they've always said driver's licenses.
So to answer that, what I wanted to say is, do you know why they say that? Because that's the order from above. Typical Chinese fashion, or I should say Chinese government fashion, an order comes from the top.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing they have. And without fail, they can't really alter that excuse because that's what they were told from the top. Yeah. This is for driver's licenses. So that's how you can punch a hole in the narrative very quickly, is that it doesn't hold water, but also, they never deviated from that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also an official admission that these things exist.
Yes. So that was one issue that they had. This is where they kind of got caught out, was that, yes, okay, they exist, right? So what happened was, if you guys weren't around for the first couple episodes where we covered this, we had people go and look for them. Yeah. Right? And we had people in multiple countries around the world actually physically go and take pictures of these places. And they do exist. They operate out, like we thought, they operate out of Chinese restaurants. They operate out of laundromats. They operate out of acupuncture clinics. They operate out of Chinese businesses, not necessarily by choice. It's not that these people said, yes, please come in and operate this out of my business. It's probably many times through coercion, right?
Yeah.
The reason I say that, and I allegate this, I'm not saying this is 100%. The reason I say that it's not necessarily their choice is because of what has been happening as a result of these police stations. What it looks like at this point, after looking at what has been happening to Chinese citizens abroad, is it looks to be paired with Operation Fox Hunt. Operation Fox Hunt is something I've done tens and tens of hours of research on when I did my expose about what it was all about. Operation Fox Hunt is this idea that no matter where you are, if you're a Chinese person, you belong to the Chinese government. So they can find you and they can try you and they can coerce you to come back to China to face trial or disappear you.
What did Xi Jinping say? Once Chinese, always Chinese. You will always be punished as a Chinese, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
And another little addendum to that is if you speak bad about China, you will be punished, right? No matter how far away you are. And that's, by the way, that's not just addressing Chinese people.
No, of course, that addresses us.
Everyone. Us and the millions of people that speak out against the CCP.
Exactly.
Now, let's bring it back to Operation Fox Hunt. Operation Fox Hunt being, we're going to go catch these foxes, these dissidents, right?
Yes.
Initially, Operation Fox Hunt was set up as a campaign to find Chinese economic criminals. And that was a way to entice foreign governments to allow China to operate in catching these people. If you say, hey, American government, we have a decent relationship right now. I'm talking like back then, right? We have a decent relationship right now. Would you allow us to help or at least aid us in finding economic criminals, people that are committing fraud in your country? Because they're probably guilty of fraud in China too. Will you aid us in catching them? American government's like, all right, let's talk. Let's have dialogue. Right? Meanwhile, as all of this groundwork is being laid, China goes, how do we overstep this boundary? How do we take serious advantage of this? Let's find dissidents. Let's find protesters. Let's find people that disagree with the Chinese government or have fled the Chinese government because they are against, the authoritarian principles and human rights abuses of our country. Let's find them too. Right? And so this is how it spirals out of control. All of a sudden, next you have these clandestine police stations popping up all over the place that are most likely involved in harassing, stalking, and coercing people to go back home. And what Safeguard Defenders found was the worst. It was the worst possible outcome. There were police stations, or at least their distant offices in China, that were bragging about how many people they've repatriated back to China.
Official Chinese state media were touting the effectiveness of these police stations abroad, in public articles. But because of the language barrier, it's in Chinese, they get away with it. People don't scrutinize it. People aren't paying attention. And, it just basically proved what everyone was thinking. Now, for those of you who are maybe a little bit confused as to why it's an issue that they would set up a little police station or whatever, it's because when you do any kind of police operations abroad, let's say you're the US and you want to do police operations in, Chile, right? You will send your investigators or whatever, like FBI or something, to the embassy in Chile.
And you register them as such.
And then you register with the local government. And before you do any kind of law enforcement, you get approval from the state. You cooperate with the state. They tell you if you can or not. They can tell you to F off, and then you're not allowed to do anything.
Which they do.
Most of the time. If it's beneficial due to some kind of agreement or whatever, then they will work together with you.
If it's a friendly country.
So you are not going to be the one going and knocking on someone's door and arresting someone. No, the local Chilean police, Chilean or whatever you want to call them, they're going to go knock on the door and arrest somebody, and then negotiations begin, and then whatever happens, happens. But it's all done under the spirit of cooperation and sticking to local laws in whichever country.
It's called respecting local laws and customs. Right? And that's how the US operates.
Well, unfortunately, China doesn't have time for that because
That's
first of all, they do not respect laws and customs of other countries. And we've seen this countless times. They don't give a shit.
No.
They don't want to have cooperation. And they also know that if they tried to do this, it would be denied.
Why? I think you can answer this very easily. What kind of people are they going after?
Dissidents mostly.
That's not illegal.
People that are calling for democracy or human rights and that kind of thing, which is what America is all about, for instance. And many developed countries, if they're not about that, they at least support that. So they support your right to want to have democracy. They support your right to be able to criticize your own government. China does not.
Or call out, human rights abuses.
Of course. Yeah. And if you're fleeing from like the Uyghur situation, for instance, they provide safe harbor. But China doesn't want that. They want to take care of you. They want to silence you because it's very inconvenient for them that you exist. And so what they do is they set up these mafia organizations, basically. It's a clandestine police station, but what it is a bunch of Chinese police or CCP members that have a base of operations in your country, just like an illegal mafia operation running out the back of like a pizza shop or something, right?
And it turns out they hire Chinese diaspora to work for them.
Not only hire them, but coerce
them. Yeah,
they'll be like, hey, listen, it would be very patriotic of you to do this, and if you don't do this, by the way, we'll freeze your bank account in China
and arrest your family
or whatever. So it's very easy for them to take advantage of, as we're going to show you later.
Yeah,
the very nationalist Chinese diaspora that live abroad, super easy to just turn on the nationalism.
Or pay.
Yes, pay them or coerce them into working for them.
Yeah.
Okay? So they already have assets on the ground everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Okay? And it just depends on whether or not those assets choose to work for them or not.
Yes.
Okay? And it is like a mafia organization. And here's the problem, okay? It's illegal. It's extra legal. What's going on has got nothing to do with the local laws in that country. And that's why it's dangerous. That's why it's criminal.
It's exploited.
Yes. These Chinese police stations are criminal organizations breaking the law around the world. Breaking the law by stalking, harassing, intimidating, threatening, doing whatever they have to do to silence dissidents and also bring what they consider to be criminals back to China, but illegally, forcing them.
It's allowing China to operate the Chinese government in your country. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't stop. There might be some people who be like, "Oh, I'm not a Chinese citizen, or I'm not a China dissident, or something." Right? Doesn't matter. You think they won't take the next step? You know what I mean? If you're allowed to operate a criminal organization, they'll do anything they can. They're allowed to.
Yeah. And they do all sorts of things like call in fake bomb threats. They SWAT people. They do whatever they can to silence people.
Yes.
Okay.
Now it's, all this stuff that was happening leading up to this. This is what I want to say. All that was leading up to this, like all the bad stuff that was happening to dissidents or anti-CCP people abroad, now has a reason. Now has something to be traced back to.
Yeah.
And it's what was suspected. As soon as people found out about these organizations, it was suspected that they were doing dodgy things.
Yeah.
And now it makes so much sense, especially what's been coming to light.
Yeah. So anyway, what you see behind us is a building in Chinatown in New York City. That's right. Not too far away from us over here. And what's going on?
In the windows there, see those glass windows, I believe, at the third floor.
Yeah.
That is the FBI raiding the offices.
Yes.
And of one of these police stations. And apparently this happened in November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last fall, yeah.
So what was going on here is there was actually no statement from the FBI, which is interesting. They didn't say why they are doing this, because what was leading up to this was that the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, was saying, we're very concerned about this.
Yeah.
This is messed up, especially when they found out, because the Safeguard Defenders report, when we were looking at it initially, most of the stuff was abroad. Yeah. Most of the stuff was in other countries, which is alarming. But for people in America, it's kind of like, whatever. There's only one in New York City. But then they found out that there were multiple ones, at least one in LA and a couple in New York City or something. And so the FBI's response was like, this is really bad, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But then there was silence. They didn't reply to the New York Times. They didn't reply to journalists. Yeah. Right? So what transpired here, we don't actually know. But the fact that there was a raid and an investigation means that something's going down. Yeah,
there have been quite a few updates as far as this is concerned, but there are other things that you might not expect to be linked to this whole situation, which have also been happening simultaneously.
Yes, so that's actually why we wanted to do this episode.
Yeah, okay.
So we erroneously didn't report on the fact that this raid had happened in fall, so we wanted to update you on that.
Yep.
But
real action is being taken is what the
Yes.
message is here, is that real action is being taken against these police stations. And we're seeing this across Europe as well,
yeah,
all over the world. You see, up until this point, none of this stuff was taken seriously.
no,
And you have to understand that as a Chinese dissident or just a Chinese citizen or even a naturalized person in whichever country,
Yeah.
If you're part of the Chinese diaspora, people have been targeted for years now.
Especially Chinese citizens,
by the way,
though.
these service stations have been open for a very long
Yeah.
time, many years, okay? Depending on the country, of course, it could be a decade or more. It just depends.
it's a Xi Jinping initiative.
Yeah.
though.
So they've been open for ages. So you're a Chinese, diaspora dissident, and you've been harassed and threatened and silenced and coerced and whatever by these police stations. In the past, you file a local police report or something that you're being stalked, and it just doesn't go anywhere
Yeah.
because it's too difficult. You have to understand it's very difficult for local police stations. Think about it, okay? Here you are in the U.S. and or you could say South Africa. I'll use South Africa as an example because this happens in South Africa a lot. In fact, there's a heavy, terrible sort of underground in South Africa. They found whole families that have been murdered and stuff, Chinese families or Taiwanese families because of the local mafia organizations and all that. So there's terrible stuff going on there. But let's just say you are a dissident, you're being harassed. All of your harassing, okay, all of the text messages, all of the messages are all in Chinese, okay? All of your evidence is in Chinese and in a language and with cultural nuances that a local South African policeman is not going to understand, especially in South Africa. They're so useless. Even if you speak in their own language, they can't figure shit out. So if you go in there with this information, you're like, hey, I'm being harassed and stalked and coerced, they'll be like, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
They can't do anything about it. And I think you'll find this all over the world. Doesn't matter which country you're in. Mainly because of the language barrier, they've been getting away with this for so long.
Yeah.
Right? But now, finally, because it's gotten such an international spotlight, people for the first time that have been harassed and put in danger and coerced and threatened by these sort of local police stations and people connected to them, they finally have an avenue. They can finally go to the police and put in a report and they'll be taken seriously. So this is a huge, huge, huge breakthrough, you know?
Yeah, I want to say that there's so many layers to this, though. And there's so many layers that China puts in between this. And I'm using the context of the documentary we just watched, which we'll look at a clip from in a second. But what they'll do is they'll open up an organization in China, let's say a media organization.
Yeah.
Like I'm a travel company or
Sure.
a media organization. And what they'll do is they'll actually hide under that guise. And what we found is that they'll send people to do their bidding actually abroad. They'll go and investigate people or find people or do this under the guise of just being like, oh, no, I just work for this travel company or this media company, things like this. They'll do things like you see here, the veneer here would be I'm hiding behind an acupuncture clinic,
Sure.
right? You hide behind some other layer,
Yeah.
and then the CCP always gets to wash their hands of this.
Sure.
And I think that's coming undone now.
Yeah.
It's becoming very clear that the Chinese government is breaking all rules of international diplomacy.
They always do.
Yeah, they always do, but it's so at the forefront, and the crimes are so obvious now that it's gonna be very difficult to hide behind this.
Yeah.
So there's a documentary. It's in German, but thank God it's got English subtitles.
Yeah, we've linked it in the description below.
Just broke.
Yeah.
Huge stuff. And I just want to give you a quick rundown. It follows this journalist, really amazing journalism, some of the best I've seen around this story.
Yeah.
It follows this kid that ran away from China when he was 17 to join the Hong Kong democracy protesters.
Well, he put two posts on Weibo. So basically he tweeted out twice.
Sure.
And then he started to get threats and a warrant was put
Yes.
out for his arrest by the government. So his father sent him to Hong Kong and then to Europe.
I should say he put out the Weibo tweets and then went to Hong Kong, but
he had to
was
escape.
in support of the Hong Kong democracy protesters. So they actually played his on national TV. They played clips of him saying that he's a criminal.
Yeah, and they put a warrant out for his arrest.
Put a
and all
warrant
that.
for his arrest. So then he flees to Germany, right?
Yeah.
After he gets to Germany,
No, didn't he go to Holland?
Holland, but he meets this German guy, right? This German journalist, and he starts to get massive harassment when he's in Holland, and then also in Germany.
Yeah, he was getting phone calls from a Berlin phone number
Yes.
that was like harassing him or texts and so on.
So they're like the journalist in Germany is like, why don't we go try to figure out what this is?
Yeah.
And the whole thing is it's like a movie. It's
Sure.
crazy. This is just one tiny clip.
Yeah.
Just now I received a message from booking. It then told me somebody used my name book a hotel, and I checked this link. I saw somebody use my name book the Ritz-Carlton Berlin. So maybe later they will send a bomb threats, I think.
No way.
I will call Ritz-Carlton.
No, wait, don't. We just go there.
Okay.
Let's just drive there and go in and ask who that was.
Okay.
So this kid is in the back of this journalist's car, and he changes hostels all the time, obviously, because he's trying to keep safe, right? While they're going through this story, and he books. Somebody uses his name to book into the Ritz-Carlton
And paid for it.
for like $600.
Yeah, they actually paid for and booked the hotel. And that's so that they could later send a bomb threat and
Yes.
he would be connected to that place.
So this one dissident, who's not even that prolific or powerful,
No.
young man,
Yeah.
they're spending so much money on trying to like mess with him, right? And he said this is par for the course. This is just what they do.
Yeah.
Turns out later on, as you see, like the people that are doing this are transferring tens of thousands of euros all the time through cryptocurrency and all this kind of stuff. And each person is tasked with harassing people under the guise of nationalism. But what this actually is a plot from the CCP.
Yeah, it's all CCP
It's
linked.
crazy.
Definitely watch this little documentary and maybe leave a little the China Show sent me or something in the comments. That'd be fun.
Yes.
Down below.
Yes.
The link is in the description, but definitely worth a watch. And it gives you a good idea into some of the workings of all of this. And it's important from another aspect as well. You know, when we cover topics here on the China Show, a lot of the time that it's related to something that's happening in the USA. A lot of people will be like, oh, USA, imperial, whatever. What do they say? Imperialist.
Imperialist, yeah.
What is that? Military and industrial complex, all that nonsense. But this is not a USA issue. This is a worldwide issue.
Yes.
Okay? And so this, for instance, spans multiple European countries because the guy is living in the Netherlands and he's being harassed from one of these Chinese police stations in Germany.
Yes.
So it's cross-border, cross-European, all this kind of stuff. And it just shows you once again that all over the world, it doesn't matter where you are, South Africa or Chile or wherever you are, the Chinese government overseas police stations are there to harass, silence, and intimidate Chinese people abroad. And not just Chinese people, anyone who's involved in any sort of, activism against the CCP or who criticizes the CCP.
Yes.
Know what I mean?
Yes.
So again, that's just showing a spotlight on how dangerous these overseas police stations are.
Yeah, so I just wanted to cap this off. That documentary goes into so much more than this.
It shows one of a Chinese restaurant that's supposedly one of those police stations over there.
And it turns out there's this massive criminal organization going around hunting Chinese people.
Yeah.
And they go and visit Uyghur families.
Yeah.
And it turns out like China was arresting family members in China just for people fleeing to Germany. Arresting them for 17 years on fake charges.
Yeah, of course.
17-year sentences for this stuff.
Oh, they do it a lot. It's terrible, and that's why it's worthwhile watching this because it's the same sort of thing that we're used to seeing with many other stories and anecdotes and so on. The Chinese government really is just a very big international criminal organization, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're... Again, I hate doing this like reiteration thing, but if you're investing in China knowingly and saying, you know what, it's the next big thing, like it's a necessary evil. We're just you're gonna have to invest in it. You're gonna have to realize that China's on the world stage. Blah blah blah. No.
Yeah, don't do
absolutely
it.
not.
Don't do it if you can manage it. Just don't do it. Anyway, now absolutely related to all of this, we covered a case not too long ago, maybe I don't know, a month ago or so, where.
Early December, I believe.
Yeah, People's Republic of China citizen arrested for stalking. Okay. Now, just a recap on this. This is a guy who was studying in Boston.
Yeah, Berkeley.
In Berkeley, yeah.
Berkeley College. Yeah.
But it was like a music college or
It's
something.
Berkeley College of Music, not Berkeley, California.
Yeah. It's Berkeley, and I think it's spelled
East
different.
Coast here. Not West
exactly. He was arrested for stalking and harassing another student, a female Chinese student, who put up a poster that said, stand with the Chinese people, we want democracy and stuff. And he threatened to chop off her hands if she ever put that out again. He was sending threatening mails to say that he had contacted the police, the public security in China, and they were going to go talk to her family. Okay?
Sounds really familiar. Does it
That-
all sound like what we were just talking about?
It is exactly that.
So Xiao Lei Wu,
Yeah,
not
that's his
scared
name.
to say his name,
No.
was arrested.
Yeah, he's arrested.
at
But
that
wait,
time.
there's a development. That's why I'm showing you this
Yes.
old one first. He also put her email address out publicly
Mm-hmm.
and encouraged other people to harass her, which
Mm-hmm.
is something we've experienced. It's a very common way for the Chinese 50-cent army to intimidate people, is they put their information out there. They
Slash
dox
the
them.
overseas police stations.
Yeah, exactly. And they put it out there. They put it out on Chinese forums. They put it out on Weibo and stuff. And so that like a nationalist mob will go and attack that person.
Or at least that's the alibi.
Yeah, exactly. They also were calling for people to dox her, reveal where she lived and all this kind of stuff. Whole lot of horrible, terrible things. Okay, so he was arrested. Now, the wheels of the law in America are slow. Justice is not swift.
Looking
So
at his
Xiao
report.
Lei Wu has now been indicted.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's different.
Wah, wah, wah.
Being arrested in America apparently isn't so bad.
Yeah, well, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yes. Yeah. Da-dung, like Law and Order. The Serious Crime Division or something.
Yes.
Anyway, now when someone is indicted, that means they've now been formally charged.
Yes.
Okay. Now this is the real breaking part of this story, is that he's now been formally indicted, and this is causing huge panic amongst Wu Mao, online.
And overseas Chinese police stations.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It's all tied to this guy.
Because this is serious. He is facing 5 years in prison if charged and sent. Because remember, this is America, right? So you get indicted,
Yep.
then you get you go on trial, you get tried, then you get convicted, then you get sentenced, and then you get released back into the public to do more crimes. No, hang on, no, that depends on the situation. But anyway, it's a long process of what I'm trying to say. But this is a very important step.
Yes.
Every step is important, because if it gets cut, like, oh, they arrested him and then they release him, then it's gone. This is super important, because now it's like set in stone.
I also cannot wait for the details of this case to come to light, because I have a very sneaking suspicion. This is my opinion. This has nothing to do with the law. I don't know what the process is here right now.
Yeah.
But I suspect we will see a very similar story unfold that we just saw in that German documentary.
Yeah.
I suspect there was probably money exchanged. We'll find out. Again, this is all I'm alligating. I have no idea. This is a criminal investigation. We'll see what happens. But this is the next important step into us finding out what transpired here. And I suspect it's very, very similar to the other tactics we've seen.
It very well
used.
could be. You also have to understand that these internet trolls, these 50-cent army Wu Mao nationalists, have been getting away with just being able to brazenly threaten people for the longest time now. In China, if they're in China, they're immune.
Yes.
And they will do the most disgusting, dastardly things that they can over the internet, of course.
Yes.
Doxing people, swatting people. For those of you who don't know what swatting is, it's like falsely reporting a crime.
Yeah.
So the police come to that person and harass them, say, oh, he's holding someone hostage.
In a restaurant, and then
Yeah.
they go,
And they go in and, possibly cause trouble and maybe shoot them by mistake or whatever the case. It's a big, big problem. They do all these terrible things. They report them to every single organization possible for every dastardly deed, hoping something sticks. You know what I mean? That's what they normally do. But to have the goal to do that while you're in America to another student that's currently studying in
American
America
person.
with you. And something people don't understand about America is you don't need to be a citizen to still be protected by the law in America, which is something that makes America a great country.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay? If you are here legitimately, and even illegitimately, I mean, illegal, residents or whatever you want to call them, illegal aliens or people that just came over the border or whatever, they're still protected by the law too.
American person.
Yeah.
You're on U.S. soil.
Exactly. You're on U.S. soil. If you're being harassed, if you're being threatened, the police and the law will protect you.
Yes.
That's what they do. They might deport you after they've protected you, but they will still protect you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So anyway, the fact of the matter is, this guy was doing all this stuff here. So it's stupid of him to do it. But the whole be-all and the end-all of this is that it's now official that he's been indicted. And the Chinese internet is going insane over this.
Yes. I do want to make one delineation here. It's not that me and you disagree, but do not minimize the crime by acting like he might be just an internet troll.
No, he's not.
No, I mean, he could have
Yeah.
absolutely been tasked to do this.
Yeah.
He could have. Right?
Dude,
I want to keep
yeah.
everything. I want to keep everything available. All of our
course.
options. You know.
No, of course. I don't think he's just an internet troll, and I do want to clear this up a little bit here. Is that you have to be in such a comfortable position that your government's got your back.
Yes.
For you to do something like
Yes.
that. Okay.
Well said.
You have to be like, I am going to stalk, harass, threaten, and upend this person's life. And it's okay. Nothing's going to happen to me because not only will I be protected by my government, but everyone's going to agree with me. It's going to be
Correct.
okay. And that is obviously because he knows that, I don't know, things that have happened in the past, or he's been in contact with people, or the Chinese embassy is kind of used to
him to
that
do
sort of thing. I mean, look,
maybe.
we know for a fact that in the past, when there've been certain things like little groups of democracy gatherings, or maybe there's like a Taiwanese food stall or something, the ultranationalist students will go to the Chinese embassy to report this.
Correct.
And the Chinese embassy will instruct them on what to do.
Correct.
And they will go and take photos and harass the people and show them to the Chinese embassy. This is something that happens. They are working as agents and police,
Correct.
on behalf of the
said.
Chinese government, and all tied into these, police stations as well, because now they have a base of operations and they have their so-called volunteers, which are actually real policemen from overseas staffed there.
That's why I said this isn't necessarily part of that, but I want to connect it to that because of the way this might have operated.
Yeah.
There's always that level of veneer. There's a veneer of we have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
CCP, I wash my hands. This is just enthusiastic people that really want to protect the country. And it's something we've seen on a personal level.
Yes.
And we won't get into that, but it's something we've seen in many victims we've talked to. And it always has this veneer of, we didn't do it,
Oh,
but
it's
there's
just
a lot of nationalistic people out there that will do
Yeah.
it. And I never want to further that narrative because that's bullshit.
We've actually received threats from people online, the people who are trying to dox us. And they were like, we have your address. And you know what? You never know what might happen. There are a lot of very enthusiastic and nationalistic Chinese people living in America right near where you live. If they knew exactly where you lived, who knows what could have happened.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
it's
they did.
all an alibi to
Yeah.
set this up. And this has been exposed now.
Yeah, of course. Though the people, by the way, making those threats, go screw yourself. And we know who you are, and you're disgusting. And one of these days, hopefully you'll realize the error of your ways. You never know with these people, but whatever. The fact of the matter is that what he did was criminal. Okay, and we have to just take the whole China element out of it for a minute. If you're at college and you're in your mid to late 20s, and somebody puts up a post that you don't like, okay? And you start to harass them and you threaten them. You threaten them with killing them. You start to dox them. You go out there and you encourage other people to dox them. Brigade, you encourage other
Correct.
people to attack them. And you report them to authorities in another country, maybe where they're from. Say they're from, I don't know, Italy or something. You phone the Italian police and you say that they've committed crimes and stuff. This is completely criminal.
Transnational repression.
Yeah, it's criminal.
Textbook.
Yeah.
We've been victims of transnational repression. All of the hundreds of Chinese diaspora that we've talked to, the victims, have been victims of transnational
Yeah.
repression, and it's coming to a head now.
And again, you cannot deny the links now because he himself said that he reported them to the Chinese government. So thereby he's linked to the Chinese government. If the Chinese government went and took his information and acted on it, that means that he worked as an agent of the Chinese government.
That is correct.
That means he is a Chinese government agent.
That is correct. Just like we saw in the German documentary, you are anti-China. Remember what the criminal says when he
Yeah.
threatens the kid? He says, our country's police did this.
Yeah.
He's talking about China.
Yeah, our country's police are here.
are here.
Yeah. That's the whole point of this, is that you cannot say he's just an enthusiastic nationalist
No.
if he's actually doing the work of an agent for you.
Correct.
Reporting people to the PSB in China.
The Chinese government has become a criminal organization.
Yeah. So anyway, the fact that this guy now faces up to 5 years, I wish it'd be more than just 5 years, but 5 years and $250,000 in fine, whatever, that's the penalty, has gotten the Chinese internet in an uproar.
Yes.
They are crazy because, of course, this has made a lot of news in the Chinese forums and
Yeah.
online.
It's not supposed to be being reported, by the
No,
way.
but the Wumaos are really scared.
Yes.
They're like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
I think some of them are starting to realize that they cannot get away with just being complete pieces of shit anymore.
Not in America.
Yeah.
That's the worst place you could try.
Yeah. And I think there needs to be more of a spotlight on this because we've seen this go on for years and years, this absolute repression that's been happening, especially on campuses overseas. Like look in Australia with Drew Pavlou and all that nonsense that goes on there. Same deal. If someone wants to have like a free Tibet or a Hong Kong democracy gathering or protest, thugs come in and tear down their signs and intimidate people and stuff. That is not how things are supposed to work.
No.
In developed countries.
No.
You know?
No.
But they get away with it. When are these people are not deported, they're not arrested. Nope. It's ridiculous.
So I, as an American citizen and as someone that I can speak to anyone, hopefully. I think it's my duty and our duty as hosts of this show to say that if you have been a victim or someone is threatening you and it is transnational oppression, especially on behalf of the Chinese government, it's not the time to be silent anymore.
No,
it's been going on for a long time. Do not be silent anymore because something will be done about it.
And now is the time because now you can go to the police.
Yeah.
And they will understand.
Yes.
If you say, look, this whole thing about the overseas Chinese police and the harassment and so on, I've been a victim of that. Show them the evidence, show them the messages you've got. Do it now. Now is the time where they will take you seriously. If you've been worried about them not taking you seriously in the past, that's legitimate. But now they will. Doesn't matter what country you're in.
Yeah.
Do it. The more, the better. We've got to root these terrible organizations out.
Yeah.
And if China wants to do anything to do with the law abroad, they will do it correctly in the future. We need that message to be out there.
Yeah. So the link of the indictment report from the justice.gov website is in the description. So check that out, read that at your leisure, and I'll be staying tuned to see what happens because, like I said, I'm most interested to see what tactics were used and what led up to this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the more these police stations are exposed, the better.